How many of you know what ChatGPT is?
It's not just a search engine, it's an answer engine.
It's not always right, but it's brilliant.
And it's going to be a hell of a lot smarter than you in 2 years. So get ready.
There's something once in a lifetime happening in AI right now. New generative models like ChatGPT are being used by engineers to write code, by creatives to help produce Oscar-nominated films, and even pass the US medical licensing exam for becoming a doctor. And with this new technology comes the opportunity of a lifetime. Historically, the most legendary companies have always been built on the backs of new technology platform shifts. The rise of broadband internet spawned Google and Amazon. The rise of mobile led to Uber. And compared to the explosion of energy during the dot-com days or the opening of the App Store, the AI gold rush will be so much bigger because now you don't need a Stanford PhD in computer science. Any developer can build something amazing on top of ChatGPT or other foundation models. So this wave of AI could be the biggest tech platform shift we've ever seen. Bigger than mobile or the cloud, and more on the scale of something like the Industrial Revolution, which changed the course of human history. And this isn't just crazy talk. It's already starting to happen. More developers flock to Stable Diffusion in just a few days than have been drawn to Ethereum in almost a decade. ChatGPT reached 100 million users in just a few months, faster than any product in history. And it's not just a toy. The tech's already found at least 3 sweet spots for commercialization: image generation, copywriting, and code writing, all of which are supporting companies making $100 million in annualized revenue just a year or so after launch. So if this is just the start, what's next? Well, there's hundreds of blog posts and YouTube videos flying around regurgitating the same ideas. And I'll save you a bunch of time. The ideas are basically SEO copywriting, authoring blog posts, newsletters, building landing pages for dropshippers, customer service chatbots, translation services, coaching and training, counseling, and so on. But if you're trying to build a big business, these sort of consensus Me Too ideas are almost doomed to fail. Just as there are millions of copycat mobile apps out there and only a few that are truly generational businesses, we're going to see a ton of developers creating gimmicky, thin UI layers wrapped around ChatGPT that ultimately have no staying power. And that is literally what YouTube videos are actually recommending that you do. Don't get me wrong, if you want to try to make a quick buck or build a small lifestyle business that's one of thousands, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you really want to take a big swing and change the world, it's not by rushing to pan the same river for gold as everyone else. It's by going where no one else will dare to venture. As the legendary Peter Thiel likes to say, competition is for losers. But the path to building a company that can dominate the competition is not for the faint of heart. I'm a venture capitalist at SignalFire and formerly Kleiner Perkins, funds that have invested in companies like Google, Amazon, and more recently Grammarly, Row, and others. And here's my take on what can be the next Google scale opportunity building within the AI gold rush happening right now. Let's start with the most incredible money printing machine of all time, Google. They have an unassailable consumer data monopoly. And with more than 90% of all searches happening on Google, that means they can serve the long tail of searches in particular much better than anyone else. But Google's search leadership is finally starting to crack. Amazon has already siphoned off many product searches, and generative AI may take an even bigger chunk out of Google. There's a certain set of queries, like what's the weather right now in San Francisco, where you don't necessarily want to see a screen of blue links, so you just want the answer. ChatGPT might unbundle these sorts of queries, while Google has teams of engineers building out all these one-box direct answers like weather, sports scores, or dictionary definitions one at a time by hand. ChatGPT could generate this knowledge graph in a much more scalable way. As these answers get better and better, it might just change the very nature of search, where instead of Google returning links for the best cheesecake recipe, ChatGPT generates the answer instead, drawing from hundreds of popular recipes on the internet. Now, as a new company, taking on these search giants in Google and Microsoft might be close to mission impossible, but it's worth mentioning because for the first time ever, it feels like the greatest business of all time may actually be vulnerable. The more interesting disruption thesis is that some tailored version of ChatGPT might provide a better specialized search experience that's different enough for some vertical of Google search, like restaurant reviews. But for startups, there's actually another untapped application of search within companies that can be just as massive. And that's by fine-tuning AI large language models to understand systems of record data buried within corporations. By doing so, these models could then unlock the data that's stuck today inside these rigid ERPs, WMS, TMS, and EHR systems, and bring decisioning intelligence to these trillion-dollar old-school industries like manufacturing that have been stuck in the Stone Ages. This is a greenfield opportunity that sidesteps Google's stranglehold on search. And this example actually brings up an important lesson for how to build an enduring business using AI. In the long run, we know that the algorithms will commoditize. Google doesn't win because it has the best algorithm. It wins because all of its users give it better training data for returning the best search results. So value will accrue to those who can build proprietary and often non-obvious sources of data to fine-tune these models to specific use cases. So what are the industries that have lots of valuable data sources and lots of valuable documentation that could be automated? Well, the biggest industries that fit that criteria are legal, financial services, and healthcare. I'm especially bullish that OpenAI and ChatGPT will transform healthcare, but not in the way that you think. Since ChatGPT can pass the medical licensing exam, you might think that it can replace your doctor or therapist. But that's just not going to work since ChatGPT is based on the content of the internet, which has been known to be wrong from time to time. And ChatGPT still makes very basic mistakes. Now, that may be fine in low-stakes situations, but a missed cancer diagnosis or the wrong advice to a suicidal patient can have disastrous consequences. That said, there are some very valuable data sets across the healthcare value chain that could make for really interesting applications of ChatGPT. Medical coding for billing is done manually by teams of people today, and is fraught with all sorts of human error. If you talk to any doctor, you'll quickly realize most of them are burnt out, and 40% of their work isn't even patient-related. It's just filling out paperwork and taking clinical notes. These happen to be document-based tasks that large language models are uniquely good at. Doctors are also buckling under the workload of answering emails and texts from patients once they leave the hospital. Again, a lot of these interactions, especially the simple questions, could potentially be answered with a doctor in the loop by ChatGPT. And it's going to be interesting to see what can be done in biopharma, where screening results from expensive clinical trials and experiments gives a huge advantage in drug discovery versus just using publicly available protein modeling libraries. Just maybe we'll see more advanced anti-aging drugs to extend our lifespans to ages never thought possible. Even though AI could be the key to the real fountain of youth, it also has the power for massive abuse. It shouldn't surprise you that AI is already being used to make convincing fake pictures, audio, and video, whether to impersonate others for identity theft or post malicious videos impersonating others. So one of the areas I'm most interested in is the intersection of new AI models and cybersecurity. We could use AI for good to find vulnerabilities and proactively protect us. One thing's for sure though, the never-ending war between malicious attackers and security defenders are going to meet in a completely new battlefield of AI. And that will be an incredible opportunity to build the next generation McAfee. One area where there's already some interesting security and fraud products being built is in education. College professors are having to completely rethink the way they teach. Thanks to ChatGPT, students can now automatically generate homework essays that can get B+ college-level grades. So teachers are now asking students to write drafts inside the classroom and do more oral exams. This Princeton student even built an app to detect ChatGPT plagiarized essays. And for their part, OpenAI is introducing its own classifier for indicating AI written text. In one case, ChatGPT was accidentally recommended for a job interview with a communications consultant firm. But there are other ways that ChatGPT could impersonate people that might actually be a good thing. In one of the most creative applications I've seen so far, Do Not Pay used a deepfake voice and combined it with a ChatGPT bot to phone Wells Fargo and overturn wire fees. There's going to be a ton of these very narrow, long-tail use cases just like that, unlocked by AI. In fact, anywhere you saw chatbots fail to live up to the hype might be a great place to look and see whether or not ChatGPT could be the unlock. The canonical example is customer service, where ChatGPT could potentially displace thousands of people in call centers answering texts and emails. Another place to look as a developer is where there are labor marketplaces where expensive creator work could be automated. You could look at marketplaces like Upwork, Fiverr, or Houzz to find large verticals that could be unbundled and automated by generative AI. On that note, it's been surprising to see AI so good at high-end creative tasks. One of my favorite high-end use cases for generative AI, though, is storyboarding. There are tons of creative teams that do brainstorming, diagramming, and planning on blank canvases. This was a style of design thinking popularized by the legendary firm IDEO. And as more companies began bringing teams together in this ideation, design, and strategy process, they needed a common visual language to collaborate. And companies like Miro and Mural have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to serve this need with pre-built templates. But these tools still involve tons of manual work. Now, with generative AI, a person could connect their company data and type in something like generative flowchart for a marketing drip campaign and see a plan populated immediately. But even with all the incredible pace of innovation, there are still ways in which the future isn't happening fast enough. Developers are limited to whatever these models can support out of the box. And really fine-tuning models to get the best possible inference today requires a lot of steps. Some of the biggest startup companies in AI will form here, selling picks and shovels to developers to bridge that gap. As we saw with the Do Not Pay example, combining prompt engineering and different foundation models, even cross modalities from voice to text to video, will be extremely powerful. The foundation models also may need to be trained against external data that may be changing real time, like the weather, financial markets, inventory levels, and so forth. So building pipelines to these external data sources will be a huge need. And finally, companies will need to instrument downstream actions from these models, whether it's in Salesforce or Calendar, and then measure and monitor the models so that developers can continue iterating on it. But with all of these ideas said, the real answer on what's going to be the next Google-scale company to come from AI, nobody actually knows right now. In the very early days of every computing platform shift, whether mainframe, PC, the internet, or mobile, everyone from the average American to the most brilliant technologists got it wrong. Mobile phones were supposed to be for checking stocks and the weather. It took years after people all had iPhones for the world to realize you could use GPS to geolocate consumers and coordinate a network of drivers to hail a ride with the push of a button. So while we can see some of the pain points and use cases in front of our eyes right now, it's likely the biggest company of the future will be built by someone not just sprinkling ChatGPT fairy dust to turbocharge something existing already today, but using the technology to unlock something that's fundamentally new and only possible with ChatGPT. Now, that's not to say that it's hopeless to try to predict the future, because while history doesn't repeat itself, it does rhyme. And there are some principles that we can use to uncover the next big thing. One clear sweet spot for ChatGPT seems to be the re-summarization of data into human digestible prose. Up until this point, AI tools like Grammarly could take long-form text and synthesize it into key takeaways. But now generative AI can do the inverse and take raw, unformatted data and bullets and blow it up into well-written prose. For most ChatGPT businesses, I think it's critical to have a human in the loop, since the technology can still make errors. And when you're working with things like high-value, sensitive documents like medical records, you need to be 100% correct. And it's worth emphasizing over and over. If you're going to build a business on someone else's models, you have to bring your own data. So if you're a founder, ally yourself with stakeholders that have access to proprietary data, or figure out a way to get your customers to generate the data for you within your own workflow, like a Google. As a VC, I and my fund have already made tons of investments in companies doing exactly these things that we hope might be the next big thing. That includes replacing lawyers by translating legal contracts into human English and back, replacing call center agents by providing instant text-based customer service, replacing hospital billing teams by creating payback plans for medical bills, and saving doctors time by translating notes and patient records into insurance billing codes. If you're an ambitious founder ready to go all in on building the next big thing on ChatGPT or other foundational models, we'd love to hear from you at SignalFire. While I am extremely bullish about AI long-term, in the short term, OpenAI itself may actually face some serious issues that could make it Silicon Valley's next big bust. Check out my next video to learn more. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.